Good morning and welcome to Manage the Critic, a community committed to non-judgmental listening. I'm Cheryl Andrews, I'm the founder of Step by Step Listening. And today, for those of you who don't know, my whole mission is to change the way the world listens, because I believe that everybody deserves to feel heard, to feel understood, and to feel of value. And the journey always starts by us listening to ourselves without judgment, to hear and truly understand and value who we are. And those of you know the clarity process, C is the curiosity. So you start asking yourself better questions. L, language. So you might pick out a few words out of your dialogue and start being curious about what do you mean by what you say. Attention is when we start to expand our curiosity about where is our attention? Is our attention all on us? Is it all on other people? Do we include ourselves in those decisions that are good for other people? Is it good for us too? Is it about the past, the present, all that sort of stuff? Reflection is about the power of feedback, and we're getting feedback all of the time, whether or not it's constructed feedback, as in they've observed you doing something and then they've given you some feedback so that you can purposely grow, or whether we're getting feedback because we're in an environment, we're doing, saying, being something, and we're getting a response. To me, that's feedback. So if you put a post out on Facebook for your business and nobody responds, that's feedback. If you put a post out and everybody responds, that's feedback. And in addition to that, you've got your own internal feedback. It's a story that you're making up about it. So if I put a post out and nobody responds, I used to think, oh, I'm not really good at this. I can't get people to listen to me, etc. Whereas now I will look at the actual post again and go, okay, what's working about the post? What's not working? What needs to work better? And start to look at how I've constructed the post. Look at past posts and see which one's got a better response, compare them and see if they're the same or different. And then I can start to find a way of actually constructing what I'm communicating out to people, and then evaluate what responses are going to be coming back. Now, or I could have just gone into drama, which is what the I in the clarity process is all about, where I could have said, oh, nobody likes me. Nobody's got any time for me, I can't say anything right, it's not going right. So I don't. With reflection, when you've got good quality feedback that you're giving yourself or you're receiving, any feedback that's going on around you is an awareness of simply how other people are interpreting your behavior, and or they're in their own world. So there is just as much chance that when I put stuff out, it's simply that the Facebook algorithm has been they haven't seen it, or they saw it but they saw how long the video was and didn't have time to watch it, whatever that might be. So whenever I'm doing my work, I'm always looking at feedback. And the reality is that we're getting feedback if you read a post, if someone says something, the conversations with your family, the truth is we are bringing in loads of information on a day-to-day basis. And I get to these videos on a Friday and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I talk to you about? Which bit do I pull out and say, right, this is the one thing that we're going to talk about? And so that's what this whole process is about, is slowing your thinking down. And trust comes, I truly believe, when you've got that good feedback process going on, you've got curiosity about what you want to have happen, you're taking some kind of action, you've got a feedback model going on, and then you start to be able to trust your process because you know how you do you. And then you can start to tell a different story. Instead of telling a story of, woe is me, it's not right. So good morning, Steve. Oh, thanks for the clap of the hands. That makes me so happy just to know somebody's with me. Thank you very much. I love that kind of feedback. And so when you start to trust your own process and you start to listen to yourself without judgment, and then you start to do that with other people, what tends to happen is we start to realize how different we all think and feel. And we can use a word yesterday that was at the training session. Thanks for the love, Steve. I went to the West Sussex Expo yesterday, and somebody said, the first thing you need to do is a strategy, a marketing strategy. It's a good job you're online actually, Steve, today. And actually, it sounds weird, but we use the word strategy. And I honestly, when she used the word strategy, I couldn't picture what a marketing strategy looked like. Now, I know, because I work with Steve at Think Big, that a strategy might be that I'll hear words like you'll know what you're going to do, what you're going to say. But in that moment when I heard the word strategy, I couldn't visualize it. I couldn't visualize what I would physically see and hear that will tell me that I have a strategy. So I've been thinking about that this morning, and I've been working that through. So one of the things about actually getting clarity and really listening without judgment is recognizing that what we say is not always heard in that same way, because we've all got a different way of processing language, tone, attitude, all that sort of stuff. But what is important, and this is a bit I want to talk about a lot more today, is about the story you tell yourself about those situations. And in the book, if you've got it, it's on page 167. It's the drama-free feedback. So it's like, when you see this thing happening, so when I see or hear responses or not happening on the actual Facebook posts, what's the story I make up? So the story could be that nobody likes me, or it could be that everybody's busy. It's the same behavior, and then the impact that's on me. So the impact on it is that if everyone's busy, then the impact is I'm not getting the engagements, or not getting the feedback, or don't know if what I'm doing is working or it's helpful. That might be it. And then I might say, well, you know, what would I like to have happen? And I will put the feedback module in the bottom in the comments once I go off live. But if it's like, well, nobody likes me, so what's the impact on me? Well, then I feel kind of my energy level goes down. I feel useless. I become unproductive. And what would I like to have happen? I remember saying this to myself, is to change the way I'm communicating so I do get a response, and not to fall into that trap of getting this drama to believe it's not working. So one of the things that's been going on a lot this week is the story that I tell myself about helping people and helping myself. One of the biggest things that I know in order to change anything in our lives is you need clarity of what you want. You then have to allow some time. You have to physically do something and then observe it and measure it and test it and get feedback as to whether it's working. And invariably, we need support. We need somebody outside of us to either give some extra feedback that we can't see, or to physically do things that we don't know how to do yet, to teach us, or simply just to be the cheerleaders to encourage us through those changes. And so the big thing that's happened for me this week is, those of you know, I put a letter out or an email out for Square Pegs, the charity that I'm a trustee, volunteer and patron for. Trustee means I'm there on the board helping them to make decisions. I'm part of the voting board in order to decide whether they do or don't do things. As a volunteer, I go down and do crafting, and I get involved with people, actually sitting there, you know, making bookmarks or colouring ceramics. And as a patron, I sponsor them. I pay money into the charity and help them financially and emotionally. And I coach them as part of the management team in order to help the charity to grow. And that's what I give to them. But what I get back from them is awareness of the stories that I tell. And this is the bit about how to love the whole of you, is that it's tough when you realise. I know that my trainer, Caitlin Walker, does a program about eradicating prejudices. So when you've got big organisations who want equality in their workplace, you have to first of all admit that you have an inequality. You have to recognise that you are telling yourself stories about things or people. So for me, as a person, I was brought up in a family, military family. We didn't have a lot of, it wasn't a lot of money, but we never felt like we went without. My mum and dad were really good at budgeting. I remember having a wardrobe built, and they would buy a piece of wood for £2 every week, and it took weeks and weeks for the wood to build up until Dad could build my wardrobe for my bedroom. So there was never a sense of we can't have. It was, you could always see how we were going to have it. There was always evidence it was coming. So therefore I never really grew up thinking about lack or not having anything. So I'm really fortunate to have had that kind of childhood. I didn't really have interactions or any engagement with anybody other than of a white ethnic background. There was one girl called Sylvia in my school who had, she was Chinese or half Chinese, and but her dad, she used to live with her mum, and I never met her dad. So it was just her mum who was white, and she was half Chinese, half white. And I don't even know if I'm saying that politically correct, but that's the trouble, is I get too scared to talk about it in case people think I'm bad, and then I can't work out how I'm going to have a different attitude or a mindset. There was one coloured chap that his nickname was Mango. He didn't seem to be bothered by it, but it's only now when I look back on it, he was a couple of years above us, really tall guy, really, really dark skin. And that was my only interaction. And both of those were lovely people. They were people I enjoyed being around. Mango was so funny. He was always doing strange things, and he just got a big beaming smile. That's what I remember about him. And Sylvia was equally joyful to be around. So I never grew up with any awareness. My parents were very much equality. My dad knitted and my dad sewed. My mum did DIY. So I didn't know that there was people out there thinking that women couldn't do things and that men shouldn't do things. We did have some banter. My dad would have some expressions like in the Navy about homosexuality, and I use, sort of the fairies or gay or whatever, those kind of expressions. But generally speaking, I was brought up in a very, very open, honest, equality, fair, kind environment. And therefore I'm ignorant, really ignorant to some of the pain that people are experiencing in our community. And so when I work at Square Pegs, it's really uncomfortable for me to be there. I'm a trained listener and I listen to some really horrible stories, but I'm usually working with people who the horrible story is something that's happened in their past and they're fed up of it impacting their present and they want to create a greater future. And so we're undoing stories that they are stories from the past, that they no longer want the emotional hook from the past to still be impacting the state. They want to let go of that and to move forward. But when you're actually dealing with the person who is in that situation right now and they're being abused or neglected or let down, it's a much, much tougher kind of listening. And it's not the area I run my business in. So therefore I give back to this charity because I take my hat off to them. I really do take my hat off to them. I'm there for 2 or 3 hours, and these Sharon and Charlie are there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and most Saturdays, most of the year. They're not doing that in May because they've got a lot of fundraising events going on at the weekends. The centre is shut at the weekends at the moment, but they're there for 4 days from 11 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And it's not always that kind of listening. But if you just think about one friend who has perhaps told you a repeated story about what's not going right with their husband, or their kids are driving them around the bend, or they don't like their boss, and you think about listening to them and the energy it takes you to listen to their pain, if you ever notice what it physically feels like. Morning, Robbie. Thanks. Love that there was evidence that it was coming. Read the wardrobe. Oh, yeah, fab. So I forgot I'd said that. So I wanted to just sort of think about, I forgot what I was talking about now. I was just so excited. So that I didn't want to look like I ignored you, Robbie, after asking people to join in. I forgot what I was saying. So yeah, so it's about you listening to, we as a society, I think we find it really difficult as human beings. It's really challenging to listen to somebody else in pain when they're talking about their pain. And so what we can do is we either don't listen to them, so we avoid them as friends. And we know when we're telling that story that in the end we get sick of hearing our story, so we perhaps stop telling people about it. So I want to think about the story that you're telling yourself right now. And one of the ones I've caught myself this week, that I've got a number of them. One was, I've just read a post about it. There's a volunteer, John Farrar, at Square Pegs. He's 23 years old. And we had a chap come in and he was really quite shaky. And I know I was looking at him thinking, I was actually in my head going, what's wrong with him? And I'm ashamed to admit that's what I was thinking. But my brain was trying to work out whether he was on drugs. Was he somebody who had a learning difficulty or speech difficulty? He was just quite anxious and quite shaky. Now, fortunately, the people in the team in the centre had met him before. They knew him. They knew exactly what was going on. And so instantly somebody else came in and said, take a seat, draw a drink, tea, coffee. And John went, he's 23, and he says, you want a pop, don't you? And the guy went, yeah. So he really did need just like a sugar boost, something to really sort of give him some energy. The next moment, John went off to his bag and got a pop from his bag. Now, we have got pop in the fridge that we sell at the cafe. He got it out of his bag, and everyone sort of went, John, you don't need to do that. And he said, so I've got £136 in my bank account until payday. So he volunteers. I don't know whether he works and he gets that money or whether that's benefits. I have no idea. I haven't asked that question. But it did make me stop and think, because I was so busy evaluating, you know, what this person was, rather than just thinking, what do they need? And as he started to talk, basically he came in and he was holding a piece of paper with his mum's telephone number on it. And this chap's about, I don't know, 28, 30. And he's been in before, and Charlie's lent him her mobile phone in order to make a phone call. And Charlie's not there, and we don't use the phone at the centre to make outgoing calls, because we need to be able to manage our budget really well, and we don't want to have any unexpected bills, so we only have it for incoming calls. And so all of us as the team use our mobiles. So I thought, well, I can give him my mobile. I've got my mobile phone here. That's not a problem. And the story I had in my head was the one that, you know, what if he steals it? And I'm really ashamed that that's what I thought. But it's the story that I've been told. It's the story I've heard, that you shouldn't help the homeless, because if you give them money, they become dependent on you. You shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't give them that, you know, the tourist thing where you give your camera to someone and they run off with your camera. So we get this one story that somebody might do this bad, and then we stop doing good. And when I sort of think this thing about loving the whole of you, is I've got to be able to express that part of me, to admit that that's what I'm thinking, in order to change. If I don't acknowledge that thought, I can't let it go. So in that moment, I gave him my phone, and this is about a 3-minute experience in square pegs. But that 3-minute experience has given me some awareness that, one, I'm too busy trying to work out what this person's problem is, rather than accepting that they're a human being who have come in. The other thing was that we've got like a shop front, and I suppose my brain was preconditioned to think they're going to come in, say, can I have a cup of tea, and then they're going to pay their money. But he didn't. He came in and sat down straight away, and he came into the cafe. He was just sort of shaking. He was quite anxious, and I was forgetting it's a centre and it's a hub. It's not a cafe. The tea and coffee is just something that we offer people when people come in and chat, and they do their crafting, and then they have the stitch and bitch session where they come and do sewing and talk about stuff. But it was just that my brain took a while to actually go, what does this human being need? Now, I pride myself, I consider myself a really kind person, and that if I can see clearly what somebody needs, I'm usually the first one that will jump in and offer some help. And as soon as I knew that he needed a phone, I was like, well, I've got a phone, I can do that. So, but I'm just working on to love the whole of me. There's the physical stuff that you guys know I'm working on with my slimming, but to love the whole of me, I've got to listen to those stories, and I've got to catch myself, because those stories are ones that have been given to us on a fearmonger. They've been given us on, you know, it doesn't help somebody to continually rescue them, to keep giving them stuff. So it's that saying about don't give a man a fish, teach them to fish. Otherwise, you just give them a meal for a day rather than teach them. I get that. That is totally true as well. But when people are in crisis, when they've got drama going on, sometimes they just don't know that they can do it, and they need a bit of help initially. And then you gradually let them go. It's like teaching a child to ride a bike. You don't stick them on without stabilizer, saying, you know, if I give you stabilizer, make it easy for you, you're not going to do it. You make it easy. You meet them where they are, and you bring them along. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Square Pegs for they believe in me, and I find it quite challenging when I'm there, particularly if I'm doing crafting stuff, because I have a story that I wasn't very good at crafting. I actually realised I'm quite a creative person. I forget a lot of the stuff I've done in my life. And I sit there colouring, and I'm looking at everybody else's, and mine just looks really crap. But I'm learning to, and I also had other stories about I can't do stuff because I see them getting donations of card, and it's really good quality card. And I'm like, oh, these kids, they can't use that. It costs too much. And I'm like, it's a story about, you know, we've got all this thing about not looking after the environment, which I totally agree with. And I totally agree with recycling and using stuff. This is stuff that other people have collected in their house, don't want to use. They've donated to the charity. The kids are then using it and learning to be really creative with it without any fear. No parents going, oh, that cost me loads of money, you can't do that. It's a completely free, creative environment where they can just do whatever they want and create whatever they want. And it's teaching me to stop being so scared about wasting money because I might make a mistake. It's teaching me to go back to learning about stuff. because I realized I stopped fixing things or making things or creating things because I was scared if I did it, I would make a mistake and waste money. And then so all of my decisions were about wasting money, forgetting how great it feels to achieve something if you have a go at doing it. So just want to check what you've got. A couple of things that have come up. Let me just have a read. Steve's put, as Robbie started off with, taking its toll on us, listening to others in pain. I hear you and understand fully with my foster kids. And one of the things that we do when I do the 3-day Motivate, Manage, Mentor, and it's going to be in the mastermind group that's launching in October, is actually modeling out when we're listening at our best. That's like what? And it's like you start to realize that there are different kinds of listening that we can do, and we can start to be aware of what happens to our body physically, because we're experienced. I physically feel other people's pain. I can't watch those movies where people are doing horrible things to people's fingernails because I physically feel it. And the boys laugh at me and I realize why they can watch it, because it's not physically impacting them, but I'm really sensitive to that sort of stuff. And when I was younger, my parents didn't experience that. They thought I was stupid. I was told I was too sensitive, too touchy, taking it all too personally. So only since I've done all this non-judgmental listening, I've realized that when I pay attention to what happens when I'm listening, or I hear that, I get this sensation, which is great when I'm listening to good stuff and I'm seeing people grow and I can see that they're changing and transforming and they're starting to see the amazingness of themselves, because then I get that fantastic feeling as well. But it's not so good when they're in pain. Now, in a drama and a crisis, I can usually act really quickly because it's like those senses get switched off and I just act on autopilot. So I'm glad to know that that bit works. But when I'm listening to something that's really painful, I, as a facilitator, a clean language, I had to train to learn not to show those responses, so that the person wasn't evaluating themselves based on my feedback, i.e. what I thought of them or whether I was endorsing it or affirming it. It was about them learning to trust their own opinions, their own thoughts, and having no judgment from me, good or bad. And I had to learn how to manage it. That was a great gift for me because it means I can be more tolerant. However, I've realized that even in everyday conversations that I can't always, I'm good when I'm facilitating because I know the appointment's going to start here and going to finish here, and I can set myself up. If someone suddenly starts telling me stuff, or I walk in and there's something on the TV, it hits me because it's who I am. That's how I process information. So today's video, I want you to be curious when you're listening to things that are in pain. Be aware of, what happens to you. This is not about it's right or wrong, good or bad. It's not, if you don't feel anything, that's just who you are. That's great. You probably have a higher auditory resonance than I do, maybe, and I've got the higher sort of sensory. It's just be curious about it. There's no right or wrong. But if it's not working for you, think about, if you're listening your best, how do you need to be and what resources support might you need? Because that's, if I believe the world needs more listeners, and it's challenging listening to people who are in pain. And we have to check with them what they want. We need to check what they need from us rather than just keep doing stuff, because sometimes we're trying to help them, this rescuing pattern of the drama. We're trying to help them, not because they need to be helped, or it's because we want to stop the pain that's inside us. And so sometimes we have to stop and actually check, what is it they need right now? And check that is going to empower them, to help them, to resource them. And sometimes they do just need things done for them in that moment. They need something to help them to actually get out of that situation. But we do need to check with them, because sometimes I see people rescuing and it's not because the other person really needs, all the other person really needed was to talk about the problem and offload it, and then they were fine. But then you start trying to do something or fix it because you're in pain, having listened to it, and it's actually you trying to get rid of your pain rather than what they need. So always ask them what kind of support they might need now. And when we are in real drama, real crisis, sometimes we just don't know, and so you have to sit with it and allow them to work out, and over time they'll be able to start to learn to ask for what they actually need. Steve, you put, I grew up with a great deal of tolerance as well, and as with all of our life experiences, it gives us a particular kind of perspective. It's so easy to believe that everyone's perspective is the same. And it took quite a long time before I came to understand that this isn't the case. Seeing things from someone else's perspective can be really difficult, particularly when faced with perspective that's so far removed from your own. Absolutely. And it's our physical memories as well. Our body remembers stuff. And for me, people say about change being difficult. Is why I spend a lot of time saying to people, put your attention on change. When I'm working with a client, I'm listening to their language change. They might say, I'm really lacking confidence. And then a little bit later, they might say, I'm not quite so confident. And I can hear the change in the language. So I might say to them, when you're really lacking confidence and you're not quite so confident, what happens in between? And then they become aware that there has been a change in their language. And then they realize that they become consciously aware that they're just not as confident, and it's not like really lacking confidence anymore, that something has changed. And the more we become aware of change, and the more we celebrate it and update our system and our body, that changes are constant, and it's okay and it's normal and it's there. I'm finding myself and my clients that if we're expecting something to happen, so like in this, I was expecting the person to come in and say, I could have a tea or coffee, and not to be coming in with like no words, no expression. I couldn't work out what he needed or wanted. Is that when things aren't how you expect them to be, you are able to adapt, you're able to be present to what's happening in the moment much faster. So that can happen just by celebrating change and noticing it's a constant, because the brain at the moment likes to plan what's coming. It's predictability. So if our past experience, say, when someone does this, this should be the response. When we don't get that response, we can be quite shocked. Whereas actually, if we pay more attention to the changes, we'll recognize that, that's not always the response. And therefore, we're always just open to whatever the response might be. Which when I'm in a clean facilitation class session with my clients, I've had people scream and shout, tell me they hate my questions, they hate me. And I know it's not me, because I'm bringing up stuff for them that's about, they hate being asked questions. And some of that usually goes back to school, because they can't ask the questions quickly enough. They don't think they can process it fast enough. So they feel that they're stupid because they don't know the answers. And so my job's to hold that space. And I don't take any of that personally ever. And it's when I started learning to take that skill that I was trained in 10 years ago and apply it to my everyday life, that I don't take that personally. I'm just interested that what have I just done that's triggered something there? I don't believe in this attitude that it's not my problem, it's theirs. It's a relationship. I've been something, and I've done something, and it's triggered something for them. And so I'll ask questions to find out, what was I doing that's creating that? So if I've asked loads of questions that made them feel uncomfortable, I will, in a conversation with a friend, just say to them, I'm asking questions because I want to help. If it's not working for you, how best can I support you right now? And they nearly always say, oh, it's okay, it is helping, I just don't like them, or actually I just don't want to talk about it right now, or can you just give me a hug? And they will tell me what they need, but rather than judging the situation. So there's another comment here. Robbie, our brains are trained to do instantaneous risk assessments. No need for judgments. It just is. Exactly the training we receive in fostering. First responsibility is self-care. So brains are trained to instantaneous risk assessments. Yeah, I think I use this, I'm having to process that now, Robbie. Yeah, I use the triune brain as a good example, where we've got the reptilian brain. And it's actually, we're designed to protect ourselves. We're designed to keep ourselves safe. And I think the stories that we get told in the paper and in the press, there are sad things and bad things going on. Particularly, like you see it firsthand, Robbie. It's when I listen to some of the stories you tell, it's heartbreaking to know that this stuff is still happening in our society. When I work with Angela, this is why I get involved with Women's Business Club, with sex trade in the UK. It's just heartbreaking that it still happens. But if we have to hear that, and when I talk about A in the clarity process, and we've got to give that our attention, we have to support it, we have to do something to make sure that doesn't happen, and we've got to give the other stuff that's going really, really well, that's working, equal opportunity. Otherwise, we become really protective, really defensive. We put our risk assessment on, we try and protect ourselves, and then we don't look after each other. And it's always a bit of a balance, because there are going to be times when I've had people say that their friends aren't listening, and I go, I've got friends that come to me and download, and they very rarely, won't always ask me how I am. But I know a time when I was going through my first marriage, and I was a young mum, and things weren't right, and my mum wasn't talking to me. All I did was go blah 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 blah. And so I just think there's a yin and a yang between life. Sometimes we're giving and sometimes we're taking, and how long and who with will vary. So if someone downloads to me now loads, I will listen and listen in the sense that I know I've got someone to listen to me. I've built a network of people and friends who I could pick the phone up and say, look, I just need to talk for a minute. I've been on the laptop all day and I need to express. You guys listen to me on a Friday so I can come and talk to you guys. So as a downloading process for me it's almost like I can let in all their stuff because I can let out my stuff somewhere else. And sometimes if I've been listening for 8 hours a day to clients, and then in the evenings my family need me and I'm listening all the time in the evenings, I sometimes get to the point where I'm absolutely full of everybody else's stuff. I don't even have the energy to download I just need to be quiet. And that's when I do have to do as self-care. I have to set a boundary and just say to people, I really want to listen to you, but I don't have the capacity right now. I've been listening all day. I need to just stop. I need to just take a break. And often just saying that out loud and actually verbalizing it, funny enough, it empties my head a little bit. I find the tension go out of my body. And it might only take me 2 or 3 minutes to change state and I'll be able to listen. And so sometimes it's just that I haven't spoken very much in a couple of days because I've done a lot of listening. And I have to get the balance. So even as a professional listener, I do this for a living. I listen for 4 to 5 days for 8 hours a day. When I'm listening at that capacity, I need to be heard too. I often get criticised or I used to get criticised, not so much now. I go networking, I talk like there's no tomorrow, because it's usually when I get out, I start going blah, 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 because I've been listening all week. And people used to look at me and go, well, you don't sound like you listen very well. All you do is talk when you come here. And I've had to go, yeah, do you know what? I do when I come out because I listen all day. And it's okay. And I'm okay with the fact that I need to talk at other times. So, Steve, you just put you believe in me too. Thank you very much. So we're way over. Actually, I don't even know how long I'm supposed to be doing these live Q&A. So it's half past. It's half an hour. So I want to hear. I really want this group to become more interactive. So rather than me spilling my stuff out, I want you to be putting in the group during the week. What's the story that you're telling yourself? What are you catching that you're criticizing yourself for? And if you think about becoming this holistic environment where we are all able to take care of ourselves, ask for our needs to be met. We know exactly what we want, what works for us, and we can say with love and kindness to people, this is what I need right now, without going, just leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you, because we're tired, we're exhausted, whatever. We can just set those boundaries with love and kindness and say, just give me some space. And we've got time and space for the people that matter to you. That's my ultimate goal. So, and we've got to work out what's the story we're telling ourselves. What are the rules? So we think about do more of what you love and ditch the critic that says you can't. The ditching part is the rules, the beliefs, the thoughts, the fears, whatever it is that is going on in your head that is stopping you from taking action. That's what I want the group to be a safe space to talk about. Now, if you put in what your fears are, and if you are there, I'd like all of you to get proactively asking the other person. So when, acknowledge that fear and then ask them what they'd like to have happen and start asking more questions in a non-judgmental, it doesn't have to be clean questions, by the way, but your question has to have the intention of understanding more about what's happening for them rather than a question of trying to get them to see what you think and believe they should be doing. It's simply to ask questions. And I really want the group to become a space where you can do that. And we're coming into June, so I'll be doing one video next Friday, and I will be retreating and not doing so much videos. I'll still be in the group with written comments, but I now need to pull back. I've been doing a lot of sort of communicating externally. I now need to have my month in June where I reflect on myself. I've got the writing retreat we're running, but I've got time where I can start looking at myself. So I do 2 months of these intensive videos, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and then I have a month where I don't do the videos. Sometimes I'll do them just because I feel like I can, but I give myself a month where I don't have to do them if I don't want to. But you guys can come in and do your videos. You can come and share your stuff, and I will engage by written because it takes less energy for me to do that sometimes. But that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. And I'm just going to leave you, if you've got time, I'm going to read out what I wrote in my journal, in my planning journal, in the 2nd of April 2018. And what I'd like to find out is how many of you are on a similar path to me. So I'm imagining it's 23rd of October 2020, 18 months from now. In the past 18 months, I've stepped into my full female energy. I've been task-focused, financially astute, and feminine and kind. I have sustained my support network by writing cards and sending emails. I've travelled and slowed my mind down. I've heard the rhythm of nature. I've paused and smelt life and joy. My body, mind and soul are alive. All is well. Mark and I are connected and contributing both to our families, ourselves and our community. Our home is beautiful and a peaceful place to be. We have space in our lives and our hearts for love to flow through us. My garden is flourishing, herbs, flowers and space. My wardrobe is minimal and it really works. Do Delegate or Ditch has been really successful and the monthly royalties really make a difference to our lives right now. We have created a big chunks of time away from everything and everyone that has allowed us to connect to our inner calling. I now love being me. I'm smaller, lighter and stronger. So that's what I wrote in the past tense, as though it's already happened. And that was in April. And I'm really, really excited about Do Delegate or Ditch, the book that I'm writing, but also the program that's coming out in October. But if you want to be part of this evolving journey, and you can then still get access to me in June for a £75 donation to Square Pegs, you can be part of the mastermind group that's going to be growing, evolving, because I'm actually setting myself June to learn how to do an online program because of Square Pegs reminding me that it's not about how much it costs me, it's about having a go and making mistakes and learning. I have got over my fear of technology and I'm out there doing what I need to do to grow the business, and I want to help you do whatever you need to be doing to make your life a reality. So you can join me and support me for my journey to get the online. You can get support and you can make a difference to the community by making a donation. So all that money is going to go to charity, my trustee charity. I'm not taking any of that money at all, but I will be providing 3 coaching calls in June, July and August, and I'll be doing some posts within the group, and I'll also be sharing with you the videos as I create them for the online program, and you'll get access to those videos for life for £75. So if you're interested in that, please, I'll put the posted links below. Any questions before I go, guys? It's been lovely having you both here. Robbie just put, I've experienced what's called compassion fatigue and secondary trauma as an empath. Yeah, I'd love to say, what I meant to do is can you put some more information about that for everybody else? You know, compassion fatigue for you, Robbie's like what? My instant thought then was, my definition of it, I don't know if it's the same for you, and I'd love to hear the difference, is that for me, yeah, I've given so much, and when I was at my worst, this is about 5 years ago, I'd been coaching, I'd helped loads of mums and daughters have relationships better, and we found out the reason why they really weren't doing very well, so they didn't feel valued at work. So I was helping them to be heard, understood at work, and so some of that was because to be heard with their bosses, some of it was to be heard in the networking group, so it's getting their sales message clearer. Love you to share your strategies. You put there, you've got some good strategies now, Robbie, and I'm sure that's going to be coming out in your book. Is that you do? It's that balance between having time to listen and support, inspire other people, and keeping your own tank topped up. And for me, one of the things that I didn't have, if I'm, you know, it's really hard for me to admit this, but 5 years ago, I was saying to people I didn't have any friends, all right? Because the definition of friend for me was somebody who I could ask for help. And when I asked them for help, they did something. They physically would do something to help me. And it wasn't, I had loads of people who thought they were my friend, but what they didn't know is I didn't feel capable of asking them to help me. Now, that wasn't necessarily to do with them not being willing to help me. I had a barrier about admitting that I needed their help. And it's really horrible to admit it, but the truth is, because I'm a coach and I listen for a living, and the one thing that I often got value for and I felt good at was actually looking after a relationship with somebody and eventually them being my client. And I used to think that if I told them that I need their help, that I would immediately delete their ability to ever buy from me. And so everything was being driven by every single person I met was a potential client sometime in the future. So I always felt that I had to keep them as the person where they saw me as the strong, capable, I can do this for you person. I couldn't ever tell them that I was having a bad time. I couldn't ask for help because I was scared that if they saw me weak and vulnerable, they wouldn't trust me and spend money with me. And I had to break that cycle quick. There are times when I do believe you have to hold that space for people, that when I've got people in a difficult space, they don't want to know or hear about what's going on in my life. And I can hold that space now because I have a number of people in my personal life, a number of people that support me from my family life, and a number of people who support me in my business life, that I have enough people that I can go and ask for the help. That's why I can be the best facilitator I can be in my professional life. And what I've learned is I've asked people for help because I'm saying to them, look, you're really good at this and I'm struggling with it. Could you help me? And that's different, by the way, to paying them to do it, because I used to pay loads of people to help me, but I wouldn't ask someone to help me and ask them to do it for free. And yet I was giving stuff away all the time for free. It was like a ridiculous rule that I was okay for me to give it away for free, but I couldn't ask for it for free. And it's still a bit of a work in progress. I still feel that if I pay someone, I'm showing them that I value what they do. Steve has been a really good role model for this for me. He's been really generous with a lot of the work that we do together, and he refuses to let me pay. He says that the stuff I'm doing, and I'm like, well, I'm not doing much. He's like, no, that's enough. But it was a big shift for me to actually allow people to help me without paying them, because I used to spend a lot of money, got into a lot of debt because I wanted to pay everyone to let them know they were valued. And I realized there is a way of valuing people without paying them. And that can be about what I say or what I do. It could be the instructions I give. And I was talking to Karen yesterday, Robbie, about fostering. And one of my big things is about parenting. You know, my goal originally when I set my company was to be a good working parent, a good working mum. But I put so much emphasis on the working part, and I never valued the mum part. And it was when I had my breakdown 5 years ago, and Mark said to me, what do you really want? And I said, I just want to be a really good working mum. And he said, and I said, I can't believe I help other women to do this and other parents. I do men and women, but I can't do it for myself. He said, well, what would you tell them to do? And I said, well, I'd model out the whole of it. So I looked at when I'm working at my best, that's like when I'm a good mum, it's like, well, I wouldn't be a good mum without the working, because the working helps me grow, it helps me learn, it helps me develop myself. And I wouldn't be a good working person without the role of mum. But because the mum bit doesn't get paid, I don't get paid for that. And then you get me into a whole rant about divorce when I hear people saying, yeah, but I provided for you for umpteen years and I've given, I put all the money on the table. And then the person who stayed a part-time job or stayed at home looking after, it's like the bit they did that wasn't physically paid for has no value. And it makes me really cross, because it's that stuff that we have to value again in society. We have to value those unpaid roles, the community roles, the volunteer roles, and all those rules and stigmas we've got about people on benefits. I can tell you from Square Pegs, there are people there on benefits and they work more than full time giving back to that charity. And I can tell you now that people who've got loads of money who give far less time to people. So we can't create this stigma that people who are on benefits are just takers. The rules are all back to front. There is so much going on in our community where people are giving and doing stuff for nothing. And the reason your conversation came up, Robbie, is that with the fostering, when you get paid for doing it, there is an opportunity for people, and I know the message you're going to get out there is about valuing that role as a parent. It's like that role as a mother, a daughter, a sister, being part of a system as a family is so valuable, and we're not paid for everything that we're valued for. But it's taken me a while to work that one out, and I'm still learning to break down my prejudices, my preconceived ideas, my fears. But I'm very fortunate that I'm part of a community, and I'd like you guys to become part of that community. I want you guys to feel that you have people in this group that you can reach out to, and you arrange a telephone call or a coffee and catch up with each other, because I can't physically listen to all of you at the same time. But what I can do is empower you to support each other better, to ask questions, to encourage each other. And I want this to be a growing community where if you ever felt isolated or you ever felt stuck with a problem, you know that you can come in and join me. And if you're somebody who's ready to start to really get to know yourself better, to make better decisions without the prejudice, without the judgment, Do Delegate or Ditch is all about your decision-making process. It's all about you working, learning, and living at your best. So you start to look at the whole model, the value, the stuff you get paid for, the stuff you don't get paid for, and making your health and your well-being and your rest equally as important as the time you spend generating income and money. It's about getting the whole picture really right, and that's what Do Delegate is all about. So if you're ready to start developing that, get in touch with me. And then when you've got that foundation in place, then you can start to develop your listening skills to listen to other people and empower them to do it. Because the complexity is, once we know our model, we then try and work with other people who've got different models, and it's how do we get ourselves to fit together without judgment, without trying to make other people the same as us, which is where the square pegs charity is. You know, if we all become holistically whole the way we are, we end up being maybe we are become, you know, well, that's it, isn't it? The holistic thing implies that we're a round hole, we're a round peg, we're whole. That shape in itself, so that's just something I've just realised. But actually, there's going to be bits sticking out of us, maybe they're a bit wonkier than others. They're not the same as everybody else. So it's more like a jigsaw piece. So how do we fit together? How do we accept each other for our differences? And the only way I know how to do that, and I believe my purpose, is to change the way we listen. To change the way that we listen, stop criticizing ourselves and stop criticizing other people, and have more compassion for ourselves and each other. And the only way we can do that is to know what we want, know what works for us, and get support, because we all need cheerleaders, encouragers, motivators, mentors, guides, teachers, in order to be the best version of ourselves, because that's what being human is all about, in my map of the world anyway. 50 minutes. I do have a call at 9 o'clock, so I have to go now. Love you loads. Thank you so much for staying on with me today. I know it's been a long call, been a lot going on for me this week. Lots of tears with some of my clients. We've had some massive breakthroughs, and I'm now going to enjoy the bank holiday weekend with hubby, and we'll do a bit of decluttering, emptying that wardrobe out. So lots of love to you all. Have a fantastic bank holiday weekend, those of you that are in the UK. Please share. Robbie, definitely please share your strategies. If you've got any excerpts from your book or anything you want to share, if you've got links to your website yet for your book, then obviously please share those, because I am not the only one in this group with wisdom. You are amazing souls, and you've all got something to share that's of value. So value your thoughts and feelings. Share what's working from your map of the world, and just say, this is what's working for me, and put it on the table rather than telling other people what they need to do. Share what works for you, and people can choose if they want to pick it up and have a go with it. Lots of love. Bye-bye.